Clear. Alright, what kind of sparked your interest in aviation?
What sparked my interest? Well, I imagine the first thing I saw was I was about just past 4. I was just barely 5 years old, and we had moved to Des Moines, and my father had taken a job in a garage up there. And one day I was with him, tried to go somewhere, and we went by the Des Moines Fairgrounds.
Do you see all them?
Have you ever been up to see the Des Moines Fairgrounds?
Yep.
You know what I'm talking about, all them buildings down there by the
Yeah.
street? Well, there was 2 airplanes parked up against that building. And this would have been in the 1920, about 28 or 29. And we didn't get out of the car or anything to go because there was no place to park and the gate was closed. This wasn't when anything was going on. And I saw those airplanes, and at the time I don't recall ever seeing one fly over anywhere. And it just took my interest, those airplanes. I don't know what kind they were, they're biplanes. All the same color, probably World War I airplanes. And so that kind of took it off. But I was fortunate, I had an older brother. I had an older brother who was 7 years older than me. And we moved back to Ottumwa, and he got so he was bringing magazines home and things like that. And he really indoctrinated me, and we had an old airport at Ottumwa down towards where you go into Ottumwa. There was a small airport, and then as I got older and had the time on it, I'd hang around that airport. And I had my first ride there in 1936. And it cost $2.
Wow.
$2. And my father got killed in '29. We were really pretty hard up. I didn't have much money. And that day I had $1.65 on me. I believe it's $1.75, something like that. I didn't have enough for the whole thing. And there was one of the kids I went to high school with, and his father was a policeman, so they had money. He had a job, their father had a job. And he loaned me the 75 cents or 50 cents, whatever, and that was my first ride in an airplane. And then as I got older, I started hanging out at that airport when I could. And my grandparents, I lived with my grandparents quite a bit, and they were only about 1.5 miles away there, so it was just an easy hike out there to the airport. And the guy that ran the airport, who later got killed in an accident, he saw me one day looking at Curtis Robin in the hangar, and he says, "You ever been in an airplane?" I said, "No, sir." And he let me get in that airplane. That's the first one besides the tri-motor that I was in, that I got to feel the controls and all that. So as it went on, I just got more and more interested. And then my family moved to Englewood, Colorado, part of Denver. And by then I was 15 years old, and there was a fellow that they used to have model airplane meets halfway between Denver and Englewood, all right off of Broadway Street. It was just a little grass airport like this one here. But they turned it into a model airplane meet about once a month. In the summertime, they'd have a model airplane meet. So I'd always go there, and I met a man that he was all crippled, he couldn't walk, and he was the same age as I was. He was a little bit older, a few months older. His name was Jack Lowe. And Jack and I got acquainted. He had a nurse and he had a caretaker. He obviously had some money because he couldn't hire somebody like that. I never met his parents. But I met him there at that model meet about 3 or 4 times. And then I left Colorado in moved. My mother got remarried. My brother got married, and my mother married a rancher, and I'd taken care of horses out here with my grandparents. And I don't like horses to this day. I like horsepower, but I don't like horses. And his name was Jack Lowe, and we'd sit and talk about old airplanes. He could talk, but he wasn't able to do anything or walk. He'd had cerebral palsy when he was a baby. Some kind of a disease, I don't remember just exactly what it was, cerebral palsy. But anyway, the main start of the story is all this here stuff here was partly responsible to him, because after we started the Antique Airplane Association in 1953, of course we heard from more people, saw more people, and we lived in Ottumwa then, and we were having the fly-ins down to the Ottumwa airport. And we built a new house down there. I was running the flying service down there at that time, called Midwest Aviation. And I only had about 3 or 4 employees, so we weren't a big outfit. But anyway, I come home one evening and the phone rang, and there's a lady on the other side, and she said, "Are you the same Bobby Taylor that used to be in Englewood, Colorado?" And this is 20-some years later. And I said, "Yes, ma'am, I'm the same Bobby Taylor." And she said, "You used to go to the model airplane meets?" I said, "Yeah." She says, "I'm here with Jack Lowe, who used to go with you." He never traveled with me, but he went to the model meets. And she says, "We got one of your magazines and we'd like to come see you." And so we set up a time, and a week later they were there, and they spent 2 days with us. And as time went by, we got more and more friendly, and he'd call me, and he could talk on the phone a little bit. And so one day they come back and visited me, and Jack remembered when we used to sit and talk and fly model airplanes and all that, and he was interested in starting a museum. The Antique Association was already going, and we didn't have a lot of members. We probably only had 700 or 800 members then. It wasn't very big. And so he wanted us to start a museum, and he actually put up the money and help and all that we got the museum across the street. But he died in 58, he died, and but he left money to the museum. If we wasn't for him, we wouldn't have the museum parts. So things work in strange ways, but to have somebody call you the blue sky that you hadn't even seen for 20-some years, and I'd only seen him about 4 times. And that's how interested he was in what we were doing. So it's something that you do on like this never really gets done unless you have a lot of people helping you.
Yeah.
And you can't do it all by yourself.
Mm-mm.
And when we have a fly-in, and the fly-ins we have, the first fly-in we had over at the big airport, we only had 5 antiques show up. Now all the airplanes that showed up are antiques now almost, see, so, but that back then, that was the first, we were the first organization in the country or anywhere that I'm aware of that ever started an Antique Airplane Association. We were the first. And it's come a long ways, and we wanted to get a place where the airplanes would be in the same atmosphere, the same climate they were when they were new. And most of the airports as I was growing up, when I was your age, they were all just grass anyway. Mm-hmm. The only ones that had concrete runways were the ones like in New York City or somewhere like that. They were all just little grass fields. Or maybe they used cinders. They used cinders in the old one out here at Ottumwa. So we're pretty down to earth in this having what we have here, but it lends a lot to the authenticity of the airplanes that we're trying to take care of and observe and have fun with.